Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, please click on like and subscribe. Take a second to drop a comment down below. Today we're basically going to rebuild a Wen PL1326 Planer, a complete tune-up and tear down. We'll show you how to replace the drive belt, chains, cutter teeth, knives, bearings, power switch, thermal overload, motor brushes, and probably a few other parts. At the end, we'll finish up with a cleaning and final cut adjustment for smooth, snipe-free planing. What's the biggest issue you've had with your PL1326? Belt slip, snipe, switch failure, something completely different? Let me know in the comments below. Now this isn't a beginner project. You'll need some mechanical skills, problem solving, and the right tools. Please watch the entire video before you start. If you rush, you can damage or destroy your planer. Now this Wen PL1326 planer is about 3 years old. It's due for a tune-up. The switch has been broken for a few months. I've had a bearing screeching in it. Today we're going to fix it right. I'm also going to change a few other parts while I'm inside that I don't have to come back later on to tear it all back apart to fix again. We'll start by removing the bolts to take off the housing assembly. Simply just follow the fasteners around. You'll figure out where they're at. If you hit a stripped out bolt, don't panic. Seat the socket, tap the end of it while light pressure being applied and turning the screw at the same time. I'll show you when we get stuck in a little bit. Work slowly, avoid rounding out your fasteners, and clean the dust and chips out of it so that you can seat your tool properly inside the fastener. Now here's a fastener that we had that hasn't stripped out yet, but you can tell it's going to strip out. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the socket and we're going to tap on the end of it while turning it slightly left. So we're basically we're making an impact out of it without using an impact hammer. Once we felt it move a little bit, it's safe to take it the rest of the way out. If you've got a better way, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. A couple more small things to remove here and we'll be ready to do some big disassembly. Just want to clean up a little bit here, and then we're going to run the head all the way up to make access for the bolts and parts easier. Up here's the drive belt cover. We're going to remove that. On the opposite side where your feed chains are, we're going to slide out the debris tray, and we're going to use a set of snap ring pliers to remove the 3 snap rings holding the chains in place. Make sure you don't lose the snap rings. This is one of those parts that doesn't really wear that much. You can get some slack in it after a few years. Probably a good place to change them while you got it apart if you got the extra money. They don't cost that much. Let me know what you think. You've gone through this much effort. Do you buy the chains or do you just put them right back in? The date I'm recording this video, the chains are $8 each. And we're going to loosen the belt tensioner so the motor pivots forward and we can get the belt out of there. It's kind of like if you ever changed an alternator belt or a drive belt or serpentine belt on a car. Just roll the belt forward until it comes off there and then slide it up and out of the hole. Another part you don't really need to replace, but less than $20 and you already got it out. If you're not going to replace it, just inspect it for cracks. Make sure it's not torn up or damaged. We're not going to remove the motor, so we're going to finish taking out the tensioner bolt all the way. Free the cord clamp for slack. Now on the left side of the motor looks like a small hole. There's actually a 2mm set screw down in there. That's a locking pin. You need to loosen it and take it out. Be careful not to drop it and lose it. Now the pivot rod in the front of the motor, you're just going to have to press it. You kind of get a pair of needle nose pliers or something in there to start pushing it. It's behind the screw that raises and lowers the machine, so it's kind of hard to get to. But once you get it moving, it should push forward. So wiggle the motor, push on it, and then get you something straight like a Torx wrench or something like that that you can push forward. We're going to push that rod until it pops out of the side of the motor we're working on here. Then we're going to push the motor forward just a little bit, as you can see there. Go to the opposite side and take the pin and push it through the other direction until the motor is loose. You're not quite done yet. When you lift this up, there's 2 ground screws under here. So tilt it back, Phillips head screwdriver, and remove the 2 ground screws. After that, the motor should come completely off the unit. Let me know in the comments below if you found out how to remove the switch before I did. Since the switch and the bearing are my main reasons of removing this today, I want to get the switch out of here first. There's nothing online that I have found how to remove this switch, so we're going to figure this out together. I found 2 bolts that hold the housing together, and then you have to actually split the Wen sticker down the middle since it's covering up the housing. So take a knife and just cut the Wen sticker in half. After that, the housing should split apart. Now you'd think by doing that it would just come apart, but it doesn't. The rod that goes through the front of the motor, that support rod we pushed out last to get the motor off, actually has a kink in it, so it will not just come straight apart. the switch has to come out before the rod will come through it. So what we need to do is remove the switch. It took me a minute to figure out, but we figured out how to get the switch out of here finally. On the very far left side, there's another little hole back in there. It looks like a hole. It's actually a set screw down in there. It's like a little 1.5 millimeter set screw this time. It's a rod that goes across from one side of the switch to the other. So that's actually what's holding the switch in place. So if you just needed to replace the switch, you could loosen the set screw up, take it all the way out, and replace your switch. Once you get that all the way, switch falls out, then the motor housing will come apart. Now, Wen doesn't list the switch alone on their website. They do have the motor for $175 if you want to buy the entire assembly. I thought that was a little bit ridiculous for the switch, considering it's a $500 planer, and by the time we replace all these parts, we could buy a new one if we replace the motor. I decided to get the switch out. I figured it's got to be a generic switch, which it ends up being, but we had to get it all apart first. Now, I did take pictures of this also, so I know where the wires go back on, and we did take a marker and mark the wires also, so we know how to put it back together. You don't want to get the wires on backwards. You could cause the switch to burn up, the overload to trip, or even possibly set your unit on fire. So be very careful with the wiring when you're messing with this. And to get the switch out of the housing, there's just a couple little depressions here. You press in with your thumbs and push forward, and the switch comes out through the front of the housing. Now, since I didn't know what the switch was, I don't have a replacement switch here, so you'll notice when we put it back together, the switch is going to be hanging out. I can hang or change the switch through the hole in the front with some needle nose pliers later on once I get the switch in. Found it on Amazon, 10 bucks, be here in a day. I'm not going to change the overload or the circuit breaker, but if you need to, I'm going to show you how to get it out since we're already this far in. You just take a pair of needle nose pliers or socket, put it on that little nut, loosen the nut up, and then once you do that, the thermal overload comes out of the back. I did look, I could not find a direct replacement for that thermal overload online anywhere. If you found one on the internet or if you need one, let me know where you found it at in the comments below. I'm just going to finish taking this housing apart so we can clean everything up. I'm going to push the wires through. Make sure you look and see where the wires go through at. It doesn't really matter as long as they're separated. You don't want your hot wires touching your ground wires around through the same hole normally. So pay attention to where they came out of so you can put them back. We're going to open the brush caps, pull the motor brushes out, blow out all the dust. Let me know how often you do this in the comments below or if you've ever done it before. As you can see by what comes out of mine, you can tell how often I do mine. The answer to that is about that often. There are a bunch of things that can go wrong with dirty brushes. Burn marks on your wood, especially on dense hardwoods. You can get washboard, ripple effects, tear out, fuzzy things. Basically, the motor's not spinning like it should. It can cause all kinds of weird symptoms. And I'm pretty sure we cut it out of the video, but basically clean these off really good and put them back in. Try to get them in the same side you took them out of. Now, a lot of this reassembly I've got set to like 1,000 times fast forward. It's just putting things back together. So you can see the steps on how to put them back together without actually watching it in real time or going super slow. You're probably going to skip that part anyhow. But just in case you need to know the order it goes back together, I figured I would leave it in here. Now slid this part down where the shaft is, there's a hump. Make sure the hump is facing downward so the switch aligns up properly. If it doesn't fit in easily, just wiggle the shaft around a little bit and work it. It should snap right back into place without any problems. Take your little small set screw and run it back in. That'll keep it from falling back out or causing any vibrations. And again, normally your switch would be pushed down in there, unlike mine that's sticking out. Again, I'm going to replace my switch, so it's just easier for me to not dig it out later on. Let me know in the comments below if you had any problems with this part. Now for the cutter head removal. We're going to remove the dip stop. If you back it out clean, you shouldn't need to readjust this later. Just don't adjust the screw on the bottom, only the one at the top unscrews it from the planer. If you're replacing your cutter teeth, this is a good time to take them all off before you take this out so you don't cut your fingers all up. If you leave the cutter teeth in like we're going to, just be careful, they will take your fingers off. So to remove this, there are 3 bolts on the end here. We're going to take these all out, and as we ran into the problem earlier, one of these is trying to strip on us, so we're going to take it out last. We're going to remove the other 2 bolts. Once we get all the tension off of it, we'll take our hammer and we'll use our extension and we'll just kind of tap on the end of it as we're trying to turn the bolt out. This is a hex bolt. I've probably said Torx throughout the video. I'm not sure why. I just caught myself doing that. So if I said Torx anywhere else in the video, I apologize. These are all hex bolts, not Torx bolts. And as you saw with the hammers, we were hitting that. There was a lot of stuff fell out from behind it. We're still going to loosen this up by hand. So as we're tapping, there's a bunch of stuff falling out. Again, it's just getting a little bit looser as we go, and eventually that bolt will turn out with no problem. These are case hardened bolts. If you strip one out in there, you're going to have a hard time getting it out of there. You're going to be drilling and tapping probably for quite a while, and it's not an easy hole to get to. Now we're going to remove the gear reduction over here. We're going to blow the debris from the bolt heads just like anything else and remove them. That way we don't strip anything out. The top right hand side, there's a small idler bearing. Make sure you don't drop that thing. Next we need to drive out the cutter head. We're going to treat this like a camshaft. We're going to protect the splines with a block of wood. If you're keeping the knives in, make sure you wrap the knives up so you don't damage them or damage yourself. And we're just going to tap on that until it pops loose. Once you get it loose, finish sliding it out and support it from underneath. And again, make sure you don't cut your fingers. Now we need to drive off the old bearing here. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to hit the inner race of the bearing. That's the inside piece. Since this one's already damaged and destroyed, it doesn't matter if you hit the outside, but if you hit the outside, you can actually blow the bearing apart and leave the inner race on. So you want to try to hit the inner race, tap it. You can roll it around a little bit if you need to, but normally if you just hit one side, this is press fit on, so it'll just come right off once you get it loose. Once it starts moving, it should pop right off. Now we're ready to put the new bearing on. When you go to put the new bearing on, what you want to do is you want to make sure you line this up straight on the shaft. If you get a little bit crooked or sideways, you can either damage the bearing, damage the shaft, or it just won't go on straight. Get a socket that's the same size as the inner race of the bearing and that fits over the shaft, and then just tap it into place. As you're tapping it on there, keep an eye on the other side, you'll see when it bottoms out, but you'll also be able to hear the socket will make a different distinctive sound once it gets to where it's going. Check for any damage you may have done and make sure the bearing spins freely. Now this side has two steps to it the other side didn't have. We're going to have to remove the drive belt pulley. When we take this nut off, this is actually a reverse thread, so it's actually righty-loosey, lefty-tighty. Let me know in the comments below if you figured that out before or after watching this video. Take a hammer and a punch and then finish tapping off the drive belt pulley. Now what I forgot to show you is there's a small key or a small keeper behind that pulley. So once you get that pulley off, on that shaft there's a little metal key that drops in the slot. Once you get that done, remove this bearing just like you did the other side. You're going to tap it until it pops off. Now this one's in a little housing. We're going to remove the bearing from the housing next. You need a block of wood or something similar to that to remove this one. We're going to take this, put it upside down on this block, again hitting the inner race with a socket. We're going to just break it loose from that. Then we'll have to get a couple more pieces of wood and prop it up so we can drive the bearing the rest of the way out. While you're doing this, make sure your housing's supported on all three sides and drive evenly. This little step's optional, but I find it a little bit easier to get the bearing back in. If you just take a little bit of WD-40, not a lot, just a little bit, put it on the inside of the housing. When you go to tap this bearing back in, it goes in a lot smoother. Now this time we're going to hit the outside. Since it's a pressed bearing from the outside, we want a block of wood to cover the outside race or the outside of the bearing and not hit the inside. If we hit the inside trying to drive it out, we'll break the bearing and blow the insides apart. Now when we go to put it on the shaft, it's the opposite. We're going to hit the inside of the race and we're going to drive it onto the shaft. Since we're hitting the bearing in the opposite direction, again, same thing. We don't want to blow out the bearing by hitting the outside of it and push the bearing out through the front. Key goes in, pulley goes on, thin nut after that. Remember, reverse thread. So you're going to go to the left or lefty to tighten it. So we're ready to put the cutter head back in. Remember, if you have the knives on there, to be careful, don't cut your fingers. If not, put the knives on after you put the cutter head back in. When you're putting this in, just line it up at the end. It's easier if you have two people, one on each side. If not, you can do this by yourself, but it's easier with two people. You just want to get it started. You're not going to drive it in with your hand. You need something to push it in with. But you want to make sure it's seated properly before you start driving it in place. Back to the block of wood again, small block of wood, and just tap it until it goes back into where it belongs. You'll feel it seat properly, and the housing bolts will line back up again when you get it in place. After we get that in place, we'll put our 3 cutter head bolts back in. And again, I'm going to fast forward through this since we basically just took it apart. We're just doing the opposite, putting it back together. I'll still leave them in there so you can see the steps. Now, over here on the ground screw, when Wen did this, apparently they just spray painted the housings and ran the screws in. You get a ground through the screw itself, but to get a better ground, we want to clean off the paint from the edge of this. And where the wire sits onto the frame, it'll get a better ground. Again, just causing less motor problems, anything in the future. Doesn't have to be done. It does get a ground through the screw itself, but you get a much better ground by doing this. Now I did find that the screws were only threaded in to the point where the paint was. I'm sure that's a factory production part. So I put a couple washers in there just to make up the extra space, but still got a better ground than we would have had from the factory. We're going to get the motor on here. We're going to make sure we don't pinch any wires. We're going to take the alignment pin or the guide pin for the motor. Basically the opposite of what we did. We're going to line up one side, tap it through all the way until it just clears this other side. Once we get it past this side, we're going to push it back in, then go back from the other side and tap the rod through to where it's even on both sides. Make sure you put in your set screw here. That way the motor doesn't move or the pivot shaft doesn't vibrate or make a lot of noise on you. If there's a flat spot on this, that's why we're wiggling the motor, and you'll actually feel the screw fit into the flat spot once you hit it. Screw our power cord back down on, and this does go on the inside of that bolt, although it looks like it should go on the outside. This is the way it goes. So we're going to put the belt back on now. We're going to work this onto the pulleys. We're going to slide it down through there, and you just want to roll this on. We've got all the tension off the motor we can. The belt's really tight, which is a good thing. So you're just going to take the pulley and roll it as we're doing here, and as we're rolling it, we're pushing it forward onto the pulley, and it will drop into place. That's the easiest way to get this on there. So we're going to reinstall the tension bolt now, and then we're going to put tension back on the belt. To this, I'm just going to put my finger through the ejection port, raise it up, and put tension on the belt so it won't slip, but it isn't over tightened. After that, the belt's back on, and then pop the belt cover back on it. We're going to reinstall the depth stop now. And again, just don't turn the bottom screw at the bottom. You shouldn't have to do anything else once you tighten this back up. As long as you don't mess with that bottom screw, there shouldn't be anything to realign at the bottom. But again, we'll go over that at the end. Back over to our gear reduction. We're just going to take this and we're going to spread the existing grease around the gear reduction. Don't overpack it. Slide it on the spines and just snug the bolts up. They don't need to be over tightened. You just want them snug. Reinstalling the chain is pretty simple. Bottom left to the bottom right goes on first, then the bottom left to the top right goes on second. It's easy to rotate the rollers to align the sprockets, but if you need to, you might have to move the sprocket a little bit to get it lined up properly. Make sure you get the snap rings on all the way. They should click into place once you get them in there. There's a little groove behind there that it fits behind, and once you push in, you'll feel it snap into place. I'm going to slide the dust tray back in, just slides on a couple little grooves in there. A little more extra cleanup here. Let me know if you've ever taken this part off and cleaned under here before. If you haven't, you probably should. By not cleaning this, this will definitely cause you some problems. As you can see by the pile of dust underneath there, this gets done about every other week, and there's always a pile of dust under there. After this, the next thing I'm moving on to is the cut depth indicator. Now, as you can see, mine's cracked. So I'm going to have to CA glue this back together, which I don't show in the video, but I do end up getting it glued back together and covering the hole. Now, you loosen the screw here and you can adjust the depth of your cut indicator if you need to. I'm actually going to move mine up. This planer is old enough that when I try to slide my boards in, it catches the little plunger that goes down through there and actually just creates a binding point for me when I'm starting to slide the boards in. I don't use that very much anyhow, so basically I'm just going to raise mine up to where my board goes through nice and evenly for my own good. If you want to adjust this for yourself, that's where you would do it. You'd run your board through, check it, adjust it, run another board through. Now, as far as lubricating, this is about the only thing you'll see me lubricate on here, and that's these rollers. I'm only putting 3-in-1 oil on it. You don't want anything thick or heavy. You don't want something that's going to catch crumbs or crust and basically bind everything back up. I'm going to run it up and down a couple times, make sure it moves freely, and we'll be on to the next step. So we're going to go reassembly mode here. Again, this is like 1,000 speed fast forward. This is basically reversing what you did to get it apart in the first place. This is all, should be simple stuff compared to what you've done. I've left it in here again just so you can see the order that we're putting it back together. You can change the order if you don't like the way we're putting it back together, but either way, put all your bolts back in, get everything reassembled, and basically that should be the finish of your project unless you need to adjust things. Now, this is also a good thing to do, especially if you're getting any snipe. This will help get rid of any snipe you got on your boards, along with some of the other things we've already done. You want to check your input and output trays. Basically, the easiest way to do this is take a straight edge, lay it from the tray on the inside to the input and output trays. If you've got light coming through there, you've probably got a problem with your adjustment. So I don't think we show you in the video, but there's two screws there, two little Phillips head screws just above the thumb. You want to loosen all those up, loosen the two screws up, loosen the bolts up, and then we're going to adjust this plate up. So when you drop the bolt in the front, it actually drops the back, which is kind of weird if you think about it, but that's basically the pivot point. So we're going to raise the back of it up to where it touches, tighten it up just a little bit, and then those two screws in the front, we're going to lift the front up and level it off so it's even. Now, if you want to, you can roll your rollers down on top of your straight edge to help keep the straight edge from moving, depending on how thick your straight edge is. And then once you get everything kind of where you need it at, snug everything up, don't tighten it, and then just make minor readjustments. Now, you have to do this on the left side, right side of the input tray, and the left side and right side of the output tray. So basically, once you figure out how to get the one done, just rinse and repeat, and then double check everything, make sure everything's straight. So the last thing I'm going to do on my Wen planer is adjust the depth of my cut, and I'm going to set this in here. I shouldn't have to mess with this. Again, we did not move that bottom screw on there, so we shouldn't have to mess with the adjustments at all, but I'm going to double check it just to make sure. So I've set it to 1 inch. That will fall in. It's kind of spring loaded, so you need to run the screw down before you take the plate back off, so it touches. My board is close to 1 inch anyhow. I've probably got 4 or 5 passes to make here. I'm making really thin passes on it. I want to make sure everything's still spinning free and running free too. Make sure nothing got messed up on the inside. And then when I'm done, I'm going to take my favorite micrometer, or take your favorite measuring gauge of your choice. Measure your board, and then if you're off any at all, you'll need to make some adjustments with that little screw there, and you can either raise it or lower it depending on which way you need to go. Again, mine's set at 1 inch, and I didn't have to mess with it. Perfectly straight, so I'm going to keep it right where it's at. Put the final screw in here, and you should have a clean board, no snipe on it, no teeth marks, should have rolled through just fine, no noises, and everything but my power switch is done. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please click on like, subscribe, drop comments down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's something I could do easier, something you did that worked better than I'm doing. Let me know if you ran into any problems I didn't, and how you fixed them.